So, thanks everyone for joining. This is our third event for Black History Month 2023 at Public Works. My name is Bayo Rovikpa. I'm one of the co-chairs for Black History Month Planning Committee. And yeah, thanks for joining us. Today, for the event, we are talking about reparations. And we have as our special guest Supervisor Shamman Walton, as well as Jon Osaki. And Jon did the movie Reparations, and Supervisor Shamman Walton is actually part of the cast in that movie. So we're excited that we can share this. Beth Rubenstein and Robynn Takayama will co-host Supervisor Shamman Walton and Jon Osaki. A little bit about Supervisor Shamman Walton. He was born in San Francisco and lived in public housing at an early age in Bayview and Potrero Hill. He has worked in District 10 neighborhoods for decades and has witnessed firsthand the challenges our community faces, from longtime residents being pushed out of the city to losing childhood friends to violence and incarceration. As an accomplished and experienced community leader, Shamman has dedicated his life to improving these realities in our community and is committed to identifying solutions to our pressing issues. He has a proven track record of creating positive change in the community he serves. And thank you so much, Supervisor, for joining us. Also, Jon Osaki. Jon Osaki is an award-winning filmmaker and longtime social justice activist who uses storytelling to educate, organize, and inspire action. And with that, I will hand it over to Beth and Robynn.
Actually, we're going to hand it over to Robynn.
Oh, were we going to hear opening remarks from the supervisor?
Oh, yes, that would be great.
Okay. Take it away, Supervisor.
Perfect. And first of all, thank you all just for hosting this important conversation today. I want to thank DPW for taking the time to acknowledge Black History Month and for bringing us together. I think it's very important that all of the city embraces Black history, not only during Black History Month, but of course year round. But it is very important that our city departments take the time to host discussions and conversations like this, particularly during these times. So thank you so much for doing that. I want to thank Jon Osaki for working to engage other cultures in understanding the importance of reparations for Black people here in the United States, and of course for us here in San Francisco, and just really getting people to understand that it's important to repair the harm for the Black community and provide real reparations, but also understanding that we're going to need all of our allies to work together and support. We need the understanding of all communities, and most certainly this documentary works to bring together communities and understanding why reparations are important and how we can support each other in the work. So I want to thank all of you for having us. It's good to be here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Walton. I just want to acknowledge I'm Robynn Takayama and contract admin at Public Works, and this is a learning opportunity. We're on a journey together to have better understanding, and the goal of this program is to increase the understanding that racism continues to negatively impact Black people. So to measure this, we're releasing an anonymous poll. Clint is going to help us and post the poll right now. And we would really love to have everybody's participation. The poll says, I understand the reasons for African-American reparations. So go ahead and respond to the poll. We're going to do a poll at the beginning of this program and then also at the end, and see if we move the needle through the discussion and the screening. This is a timely screening. The draft of the San Francisco Reparations Plan was released in January, and also this weekend marked the 81st anniversary of the signing of Executive Order 9066 This is the order that led to the forced incarceration over 120,000 Japanese Americans, which is a topic for a discussion for another time. But for transparency, my family received reparations for this incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. So it is possible. We do encourage everyone to continue responding to the poll as I hand it over to Beth.
Thanks, Robyn. And thank you so much, Supervisor Walton, for being here. We really appreciate it. And we're really happy to welcome Jon Osaki back. As many of you remember, he was here at Public Works virtually last May during our Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and he presented his screening of Not Your Model Minority, and had a really robust conversation about that. So we're really excited to have Jon and to see the screening. I do want to just caution everybody, but that the film is intense. There's depictions of lynching and people in shackles and racist depictions. So there's just want to give you a heads up about that. And then I see our poll. So we don't have, like, it's not too late to do the poll. We've got about 2/3 of you who've done it. It's completely anonymous. Right now, we say, I understand the reasons for African-American reparations, and we've got 86% of the people understand it, and 14% don't yet understand it. So hopefully this will be a learning from all of us. So Jon, do you want to say a few words before we screen?
Just that I am very grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to so many from the Black community who were incredibly open in sharing this story for me, and I'm very happy to present reparations to you all.
Okay, let's close the poll and show the results, and then we will screen the documentary.
So Jon, let me know when you're ready and I will stop the recording. And everyone can see the poll, yes?
I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, go ahead and start screening.
You take folks from their native land, their native country, you strip them of every piece of dignity of life, and you make them work, and you make them work for free.
I don't think we're ever going to have a healed country until we address the root of the harm that has been caused in the United States.
We were promised 40 acres and a mule after slavery. Obviously, those promises were broken.
African Americans, Black Americans supported our struggles for justice.
It is about how much pain was inflicted upon thousands of American people who happen to be Japanese in terms of ancestry. But this Black American cries out as loudly as my Asian American brothers and sisters.
We really just want to appreciate what you shared with us, Jon. So thank you so much. Welcome back, everybody. We want this to be a space for all of us at Public Works to learn and grow and be able to ask questions. So we encourage you to put questions in the chat. You can put comments in the chat. If you feel comfortable coming on, on video to ask your questions, we welcome that. We want this to be a space recognizing that we're all on our journey to learn more. And so just to talk about the rest of the program, we're going to have about 15 minutes for Q&A. We will launch the poll again. For the folks who came late, we had a poll at the beginning, seeing who understands the reasons for African American reparations, and then we'll have final remarks from our speakers to close this out. So we'll hold off on the poll right now as we go through the Q&A, but I wanted to start with you, Paul. What motivated you as an Asian American to make this documentary?
So you just called me by my brother's name,
Oh,
but that's
I'm so
okay.
sorry.
That happens all the time.
Jon.
I'm one of 4 boys, so I get called by my brother's names all the time. So no problem at all. But to answer your question, so I always like to start these conversations by stating the obvious. Obviously, I have no idea what it means to be a Black man in America. I don't view myself in any way of being an expert on any of these issues. What I do know, like you, Robyn, is my family was affected by systemic racism in this country when my mother and father were both incarcerated during World War II. And what I'm certain of, and what I know for a fact, is that they would never have received reparations without the support of other communities. And I just want to say that although the experiences are totally different, the ways, the types of reparations that are being sought are completely different. What I can say is that for my mother, my father, and our community, that it was incredibly healing to receive reparations, to receive the acknowledgement of the harm that was committed to our community. And I, as I was researching for this, I knew very little about this topic when I was working on this, but I was very fortunate that folks like Supervisor Walton and others were really just very open to educating me. And really all I tried to do was tell the story they were sharing with me. And so that's really my motivation, is that I just am convinced that in order to address systemic racism in this country, in order to heal it, that communities have to work together. We need to be willing to stand up for one another. It can't just be the Black community fighting for their issues, or Asian Americans fighting for their issues, or any other community. That we really have to be willing to stand up for each other. And that's really where there are opportunities to build power. So that's really what motivated me to work on this project.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Walton, we have a comment that says that there have been reparations for slavery paid out to those who considered themselves owners of those who held in slavery in the District of Columbia. So in a way, precedent was set that validates a reparations case. Can you talk about other examples of successful reparations for the descendants of slavery that you're familiar with?
Yes, so first of all, if you go back to even the Rosewood Massacre in the state of Florida, there's reparations for descendants of that community where their children get to go to any school in Florida for free, any college, any higher education opportunity. When you look at the fact that there were reparations provided, of course, the whole purpose of this video is to say reparations were received by a certain community, and this would not have happened if other communities and cultures did not come together to make it happen. So let me just start by saying, one, I would never say that the Japanese community or the Native American community ever received their just due for the injustices that happened to them in this country. So let me start there. But I will say that because they received some form of reparations, for people to say that this is unprecedented, for people to say that this conversation is ridiculous, that's where it becomes very problematic. There were reparations given to settlers claiming to be seated in Spanish territories to the tune of $7.5 million in 1800 to 1825. In 1831, the U.S. Cherokee Treaty, $5 million. 1868, the Cheyenne Treaty of Fort Laramie, $3 million. In 1877, the U.S. Sioux Treaty for Fort Laramie, $15 million. 1897, U.S. Klamath Treaty of 1897, $20 million. 1946 U.S.-Japanese Reparations Agreement, $500 million. 1988 U.S. Native Hawaiian Lands Claim Settlement Act, $1.2 billion. 1990, we even gave reparations to Gulf War participants, $12.9 billion. And Kuwait, 2017 Warsaw Reparations Agreement between the U.S. and Poland to the tune of $8.2 billion. So one, as we fight to plead the case of why reparations is so necessary, and I could spend this whole session and days talking about why reparations are owed to the Black community. Most certainly, we know that reparations have been given to other communities.
Thank you so much for that. And what we're seeing in the chat is that the way that different movements have influenced each other. For example, the South Africa Peace and Reconciliation movement has been traced back to Gandhi's work in South Africa, and then how MLK was influenced by Gandhi. There is a question, because there was land given back, the Bruce Beach down in Southern California, and then Beth found reparations, I think it was in Evanston, Illinois, where it's money being allocated for a housing element and housing program. And there's a lot of viewpoints on whether those are reparations. So can you talk about the different strategies that the movement for reparations is taking, whether it's cash, whether it's programs, whether it's land back?
So I can speak on what we're doing here at San Francisco. We legislated a reparations task force to really look at all the harms of Black people here in San Francisco and come up with a reparations plan and package that really achieves reparations, that achieves positive outcomes for Black community for so many areas. So the reparations task force is looking at injustices around education, overcriminalization, land use and property, making sure that there probably is some type of universal basic income or cash payment. But the recommendations that we have in place, and we'll actually be having a hearing about the latest recommendations, include cash payments. They include resources for home ownership. They include resources for education. They include a lot of things that will help address the wealth gaps that exist between the Black community and other communities, particularly the majority. They talk about things that are really going to change the dynamic for the Black community to be able to achieve and become successful, basically addressing the issues that happen and the negative impacts that happen because of slavery. And believe it or not, we had our own issues right here in San Francisco. And so though there's an array of opportunities, array of strategies that the committee and the task force is working on to achieve reparations here in San Francisco. The final report is not due until the end of June of this year. And that's when the leadership of the city board of supervisors have to look at recommendations and say, these are the things that we can find support behind, work to get the resources to achieve reparations. So I would agree that one, there's so many things that reparations entail. Cash payment is a small opportunity, and it's just one recommendation of several from the task force, but most certainly there needs to be more done to repair the harm and address the negative impacts that slavery has had on the Black community that has transferred all the way to our generations today here in San Francisco.
Great, thank you. Paul, you had a broad range of speakers in the film. There were historians, elected leaders like the supervisor here. There were elders, there were youth, African Americans, Asian Americans. How did you decide who to have in the film?
Okay, so I'm gonna say, call me Paul one more time.
Oh my God, I did.
But that's okay. I know you know him, so I'll just a friendly reminder. It's all good.
Sorry, John.
That's okay. So this was actually done at the height of the pandemic. So it was really about me using my networks and folks that I've worked with. You know, I've worked with Supervisor Walton for many, many years, worked with Shakir Simley, and I really just sought out recommendations for folks who studied this issue, were working on it, had perspective on why it's so important, and in particular, why other communities should care about this. And I think that's really the central message of the film, is that it's not just about repairing harm to one community, it's about healing this country, right? And that there are deep-seated wounds that have never been addressed. And I think Supervisor Walton in particular opened my eyes to the fact that there was supposed to be reparations. When after the Emancipation Proclamation and after the Civil War, freed slaves were supposed to be given land, and that was all taken away when President Lincoln was assassinated. So I think that when you put all the pieces together, there really is a significant case for why this needs to be addressed and how much it'll benefit everybody in this country.
Thank you so much, Jon. Let's see, we're seeing some positive feedback in the chat. I guess maybe the last question from me is to both of you, Jon and Supervisor Walton. We have seen that when there are strides made in our country to right some of these wrongs, there has also been intense repression. And so I'm just wondering if you have any feedback how, and these are systemic issues, so how can individuals make a difference? How can individuals help to right these wrongs?
You want to go?
Sure, I'll let you, I'll go really quickly. I just think that there are, as we've talked about today, a number of reparations movements taking place. There's one right here in San Francisco, and you can engage in that by participating in the public hearings, sending in letters of support around the recommendations. There's also a reparations movement here in California, and that is also moving forward and making progress, and you can also weigh into that. So there's lots of ways. I know that I've shown this film, had discussions all over the country, and so sometimes people are feeling like, well, it's not my community, so I'm not sure that I should, it makes sense for me to weigh in, but it really does, right? This film is my way of trying to just educate people and get people comfortable with talking about this issue. And I think there are so many other ways that individuals can get involved as well.
Thank you. I just want to again express the importance of achieving pretty much anything in this country, achieving any type of equity or battling any injustice takes allyship. So slavery would not have ended if it wasn't for other communities coming together, other cultures. We wouldn't have the strides that we have with LGBTQ rights if it was just about people who were a part of the LGBTQ community. We all have to come together to battle these injustices and achieve success in these areas. And so this film is important for us to, one, see that we have had reparations achieved in communities, but most importantly, to Jon's point, we all have to come together and work together for this fight to be successful, and quite frankly, any other fight to address inequity or injustice here in the country. Jon talked about ways to get involved with the fight here in San Francisco, the fight at the state. Obviously, we need to continue to push Congress to really do something federally to address reparations. The U.S. government played a vital role, a major role, a pivotal role in allowing slavery to exist in this country. And so they have to come up with something to address that injustice and do it in the form of reparations. We need to continue to get people on social media, get people to attend meetings at various levels of government across this country to talk about why this is something that's necessary, important. Because the way we're going to achieve it is for everybody to understand the harm that was done, to understand that even though you may not have participated in slavery, if you received any type of land transfer, if your family received any property that's been passed down from generation to generation, you benefited from the wealth that slavery provided for your ancestors. So it's not just about the fact that you participated actually in slavery. You most certainly benefited from it. you most certainly received tangible resources from hundreds of years of free labor. And so we all need to look at that and say, how do we right that wrong and do everything we can to address those inequities that have existed for generations simply because Black folks never had a chance to be in a position to receive wealth, transfer wealth, and pass it on for generations.
Thank you so much for that. We do want to launch our poll to close out the program and see if we've moved the needle at all. So the poll is, I understand the reasons for African American reparations. And I'm going to go back. There was a question in the chat for Jon. We do have some resources in the chat, but someone was wondering, aside from interviews, what other resources were you looking at when you were researching for the film? Can we launch the poll too?
Just a reminder that the poll is anonymous. So be honest. There's a lot of learning that we didn't get growing up. And so now's the time.
Jon, those resources that you were using?
Well, I mean, in large part, there were just, I was looking for human resources. I was looking for folks to feel comfortable getting in this fight and understand that, you know, it's really better for America, right? If we can find ways to heal these deep-seated wounds. And so that's really what I was looking for out of this project. And I'm still hopeful that, you know, they're in direct response to some of the movements that have been taking place. There's also been efforts to erase this history, right? To suppress it. And I think we have to be very conscious of that right here in California, right? There are efforts underway to suppress what young people are taught. And it takes all of us to make sure and push back against that, to make sure the truth comes forward.
Thank you so much. So we'll close out the poll and share the results. And Supervisor Walton, do you have any final comments?
Well, one, again, I just want to really appreciate everyone who did tune in for the discussion and obviously to view the documentary. I think it's an important piece around how important it is for cultures to come together to fight injustice and inequity. And I want to thank Jon for that, but also want to thank the Department of Public Works for taking the time to host a discussion like this during people's workday to make sure that the opportunity was available for city and county employees. I think it's important to have these discussions for people to learn and understand what is all the, for lack of a better term, hoopla about when you have certain conversations and certain battles. And so thank you for doing this. Happy Black History Month to everyone. And again, I just encourage you to always know and understand that every month, every day is Black History, but most certainly it is very important to embrace and celebrate the successes of Black people here in this country and in San Francisco.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Robyn, I just want to give one more plug for the poll. We've only had 58 of 80 participants, so we've got about 72% before I finally close it out.
Okay.
Going once, going twice. We're at 1 o'clock. Here it goes.
Thank you so much. Beth or Bayo, do we have anything to close out?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone. Thank you so much, Jon, for your passion. Thank you so much for collaborating with Supervisor Shamman. These are really important topics, and I'm glad that, you know, we find an ally in you both, and, you know, that relationship is wonderful. That's what we really need. So thank you. And thanks everyone for attending. I just want to remind us our next event is coming up on Thursday. So on Thursday, February 23rd at noon hour, same Zoom link, the monthly Inspecting Our Foundation series. We're going to have co-host Patrick Rivera and Jamoke Akin-Taylor talk with Chuck Collins and Mickey Imura on development, race, and Western addition. So I hope to see everyone in that meeting. Thanks once again, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Jon, for sharing your film with us.
Should we stop recording?
Yes.